Hey guys, welcome back to Loft Sports. I'm Tyler, looking at our Week 2 recap for the college football season. Some big games this week, a lot of non-conference action, a few conference games that were surprising as well. First and foremost, LSU with a huge win down in Austin against the Longhorns. Joey Burrow showed up, showed out. LSU dominated that game thoroughly. I was surprised they were able to hang 45 points on Texas's defense. Yes, Big 12 defense is not notorious for being elite, but you have to think Texas is one of the better teams in that conference, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And LSU handled their business. That was a big win for them. Joey Burrows lit it up. Their running game, their passing game, their defense was dominant when they needed to be. They got pressure on Ellinger. They forced turnovers. They did what they needed to do. And we've got to take LSU serious as a playoff contender. And even if you're Big Bad Bama, you might be looking over your shoulder a little bit. LSU was very impressive. They were impressive in the first week as well. I know they didn't play a very worthy opponent, but LSU right now looks like a playoff contender in my mind. Another big game, Clemson handled their business against Texas A&M at home. Most of us thought they would. A little bit of a concern, Trevor Lawrence, that's 2 weeks in a row now. He's had very pedestrian stats. I mean, he doesn't have to light it up. You know, the ACC is not going to be super challenging. This was probably the best team on Clemson's schedule, and they really didn't struggle after the first quarter. They controlled the game. They dominated it in every aspect. But he's been very loose with the football. I think he's had 3 interceptions in the first 2 games. Hasn't lit it up, hasn't really needed to, but when it comes down to the playoff and they're playing Ohio State or Oklahoma or Alabama or whoever, he's going to have to play better. So that's something to keep an eye on there, even though Clemson rolled. Michigan surviving Army in double overtime. A lot of people were surprised by this, but if you're not a weekly ritual college football fan, some people are out there saying, "Oh, Michigan's overrated. How do you only beat Army by 3? How do you need double overtime at home to do it?" A lot of people don't remember last year Army took Oklahoma to overtime in Norman. So wasn't that long ago. Kind of a similar situation, and Oklahoma was a top 5 team. They went on and played in the playoff. A lot of people don't realize that offense is hard to prepare for. Notre Dame plays Navy every year, so we struggle with those kind of teams. It's not easy to get ready for that kind of offense in 1 week. Nobody runs it anymore. You got guys chopping at your legs the whole time. Their offense keeps your guys off the field. A lot of people underestimate the triple option and how pesky it is to deal with, even for an elite team like Michigan. So don't undervalue Michigan. Yes, it wasn't pretty. Michigan fans would have liked that game to not be so close. But in the end, survive and advance. Michigan has all their goals still in front of them. They're still in good shape. Some other teams I was really impressed with this week. Maryland thoroughly dominating Syracuse. Syracuse was a team a lot of people thought could win 8 or 9 games again this year, build off the success from a year ago. The Terps thumped them. Now, we've seen this before with Maryland. This is 3 years in a row they've had a really good non-conference win. The last 2 years they beat Texas back-to-back years, and then they floundered once Big Ten play began. Be interesting to see if they can keep that going, but the Terps looked really good, hanging, I think it was 69 on Syracuse. And then Wisconsin. Not a lot of people talking about them. I know they've only played USF and Central Michigan, but they have outscored their opponents through 2 games, 110-0. That is dominating. I don't care who you're playing. It's hard to shut somebody out in today's college football. They do it 2 weeks in a row. Jonathan Taylor's running the ball. Their passing game looks better than it has in years past. The Badgers look like the team to beat out of the Big Ten West. And then North Carolina, kind of a heartwarming story there. He comes back to UNC where it all began for him. They got the big win last week against South Carolina. They followed up with a monumental Coastal Division win against Miami. They're off to a 2-0 start, and not many teams out there have beaten 2 Power 5 teams already to start the season. UNC is one of those teams. USC, JT Daniels tears his ACL last week. People are saying the season's over because of their grueling stretch. They dismantled Stanford. Now, granted, Stanford's quarterback was hurt too, but both teams had their backup quarterback in, and it was a close game for a while, and then USC really dominated in the second half. Trojans showing that they got a little bit of depth there. They might not be, their season might not be over yet like some people thought. And then how about Cal? upsetting Washington on the road in Seattle. This was a weird game. There was like a 2-hour weather delay after about 5 minutes into the game, so the teams had to come out, re-warm up, kind of restart the game even though some time had gone off. But that's a huge win for Cal. They struggled with UC Davis, I think it was, in the first week, but they were able to get a huge win on the road and kind of derail what a lot of people thought was the best team in the Pac-12 North's chances, and that was Washington. Some teams that didn't look good. Washington. Jacob Eason played so well week 1. I get it was an inferior opponent, but he looked average at best against Cal. Cal does have one of the better defenses in the conference, but what a disappointing start for Washington. That's a division loss on your own field. That really puts Oregon now back to the top of the Pac-12 North, even though they haven't played a conference game yet. Washington kind of starting behind the 8 ball. Tennessee, what is going on with your program right now? I mean, when I was growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s, Tennessee was one of my favorite teams to watch. I mean, I'm not a Vols fan by any means, but they were physical, they had talent, they won a national championship in the late 90s, they were constantly in the top 10 and in big bowl games. I hate to see Tennessee struggling like this. I have nothing against them. Notre Dame and Tennessee don't have a lot of history playing each other, but our games have been pretty competitive throughout the years. This is embarrassing. I mean, you get beat by Georgia State week 1, and then a pedestrian BYU team comes in. You have them beat. They convert like a 60-yard Hail Mary with like 20 seconds left to get down into field goal range, send it into overtime, and then you guys you hit them at the 3-yard line, and the whole team pushes their running back in. Disappointing loss for the Vols, starting 0-2 for the first time since like 1980-something. I'm not sure what's going on there. Florida State, yes, they won, but they needed a missed extra point by Louisiana Monroe. Willie Taggart might not make it through the end of the season if Florida State continues to underwhelm like this. There is no excuse that this team, with probably one of the 10 most talented rosters in the country, should need a missed extra point in OT to win a home game against a Sun Belt opponent. And then Seth's not with me today, and I don't want to touch on this too much because his Big Red Report's going to be coming out later in the week, but Nebraska. This one had to hurt for Husker fans. They buy up all the freestanding tickets. The stadium was a Colorado home game, but it was like 50-50, maybe even 60-40 Husker fans. Nebraska fans deserve so much better than what they got. They dominate the first half. Another choke job by the Cornhuskers. They let Colorado score 31 points in the second half and beat you in overtime. And, just a disappointing loss for the Huskers. Where do you go from here? Yes, you can still win the Big Ten West, but this is 2 years in a row you've lost to a very pedestrian Colorado team. The Buffaloes are probably going to finish last or near the bottom in the Pac-12 South, even though they got some great players like Laviska Shenault. They're just not a very good team. And Nebraska, disappointing. We'll see where you go from here. UCLA, Chip Kelly, 0-2, revolutionized college football at Oregon. His second year down there at UCLA, you thought, okay, maybe he'll take a step this year. Doesn't look like they're going anywhere. They lost to San Diego State. Their offense just is not moving the football, so that thing looks like it's not working out so far. And then Miami. North Carolina's not a bad team, but they were a 2-win team a year ago. I know there's some hope around that program with Mac Brown, like I talked about earlier. But Miami, after giving Florida all they could handle, unable to win another close game, so they're off to a bad start, 0-2. It's a divisional loss, so now they're coming kind of from down at the bottom of the hill. They need to get things turned around quick if they're going to have this season matter. And then lastly, Stanford. A lot of hope for Stanford. Quarterback goes down, I get that, but they got routed by USC, pretty much ending any confidence I think anybody has in Stanford putting together a big season. My player of the week is Joe Burrows at LSU, 471 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was 31 of 39 passing, made an amazing play, stepped up in the pocket, hit his receiver in stride for the touchdown that basically broke the back of the Longhorns. So what a huge win again for LSU. They're the team of the week. They're going to probably vault way up in the rankings. I think they did. I think they're 4th now in the AP poll. which puts 3 SEC teams in the top 4. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on as the season moves along. But anyway, that's going to do it for the Week 2 recap. We got some preview videos coming up later in the week. Seth will do his Big Red Report. I've got my Notre Dame preview. The Irish face New Mexico. And then, of course, we'll do some of the other big games as well, including the game day game, which is in Ames, Iowa, between Iowa and Iowa State. Thank you, guys. This is Loft Sports signing off.